Me?
You think this is funny?
In a cosmic sort of way, yes.
Well, Mr. Funny Man, is this how you get your sick kicks?
What? It's just an ordinary crabby... Oh my goodness!
It's the end of the year, which can only mean one thing. Yup, another round of talking about what our television channels are identifying as this Christmas. How motivating. But before we get to that, a festive history of Christmas idents from a channel, or channels in this case, from its inception to the year last year. This year, we're talking about Channel 4 and S4C, two channels arriving as a result of the Broadcasting Act 1980, and one of them having been launched thanks to a hunger strike, and no thanks to a particularly Thatcher-like Tory government. We'll start with Channel 4 because even though S4C launched a day before Channel 4, it has less publicly available footage than Channel 4's Christmas idents. Can't possibly imagine why. Their symbol was iconic, modern at the time, and flexible, more so than other symbols on British television at the time. So without further ado, let's start in 1982, 1 month after it launched. You may consider thinking this looks less than pleasing as a Christmas ident, but also consider the fact that they had an excuse of a single month to prepare and a tighter budget than even ITV at the time. Besides, I like festive fourscore. '82 also graced us with the classic animated short film The Snowman, paving the way for the Raymond Bruggsization of the channel. Kind of. 1983 saw the symbol turn more formal, the 4 logo forming on a starry background, complete with a more bombastic version of the 4 score. My guess is that this was inspired by the birth of Jesus Christ, though the word guess is doing some heavy lifting because we never get an actual answer, and considering the extremely insignificant nature of it, nothing's likely to be. 1984 was much more like it, the 4 logo in the style of a snowman on a snowy backdrop. It looks kind of animated, to my eyes at least. BBC One wouldn't use a festive animated sequence until 1986. So you might be asking, why is it holding a black hat? Why is it assisted by a black umbrella? Why does it look like it's accidentally cheated on its wife? Well, guess what? You're never getting an answer. 1985 was more simplistic. The 4 logo formed into ice at the end. Sweet and simple. Almost too simple. Like, I yearn for a robin or a snowman or Father Christmas to come in and do something. Make tinsel, put up your Christmas tree, urinate on the presents, anything. Oh well, it was the 80s after all. 1986 saw nothing. Literally nothing. I believe the music from the 1983 ident is used again, but other than that, this smells bad. Strange too, since this was the year of the Red Triangle, Early Startups, and Merry White House. Don't search her up. Same story for 1987, except there's more festive music in the ident. Thanks Channel 4, I'll only forgive you since you grew up the following year. Indeed, the following year in 1988 we get something new, the familiar 4 logo in a metallic coating with shimmering neon lights behind it. I'll admit, this doesn't feel overtly festive at first, even being used for Guy Fawkes Night at some point. However, I think this works well for late-night Christmas programming, except for Brookside, obviously. For 1989, we have the last decade of the 80s, and the 4 logo being decorated in a dark, misty and almost ghostly feel on a crimson and purple background. Okay, fine, this feels more Halloweenish than Christmas, but I will admit that Channel 4 was known for not being obvious in what they did, so I won't judge. I like it. The music is a bit too generic, I guess. But maybe it's just me. 1990 saw not only a new decade, but a new approach to Christmas, with a much more grey aesthetic focusing on shadows, complete with an almost near holy version of Fourscore. Graceful. No less graceful than finding out that ITV is no longer selling your own airspace. You know, like a bitch. Still, this ident doesn't use contemporary Christmas iconography, but it has more emphasis on the religious side of things. Even though I'm agnostic, I still think this ident is nice, even without the Christmas context. For 1991, we have a dazzling spectacle of multicoloured lights on top of what I can only presume to be a compass. Strange, but I dig it. I mean, frankly, I dig anything with rainbow colours, but that's probably my bias settling in. 1992 saw a fresh, new set of music inspired by S4C's to be used on all Idents, mostly because the composer of S4C was being paid for it and Channel 4 didn't want to pay him anymore, so there you go. Ident-wise, we see the 4 on a stained glass window with a flute version of S4C being played. You may call it boring, but visually it steals the cake and chomps on it too. In basic words, it slaps. 1993 had a theme of things set in New York City. Resultingly, the idents are largely focused on blowing the image to form a logo, which I really like as a concept, no less with the lights being all festive as hell. Apart from a skating one. It's too white and it feels more like a Purcell advert. 1994 was Black Xmas, which was stuff about the West Indies and the Caribbean. However, there's no special ident. Instead we get the 4 logo forming normally, but it freezes over afterwards. I mean, let's admit it, 1985 did it better. Besides, this only seemed to be a fluke. A bad fluke, but a fluke nonetheless. 1995 was the last full year of this logo's usage, and the Christmas ident was the 4 logo made to look like a Christmas tree, complete with a star and glowing lights. It's great in the same way that the BBC 2 logo can form a love heart when flipped on itself. The theme was stuff involving animals, although you'd be forgiving into thinking otherwise because of the ident. By 1996, Channel 4 adopted a new set of idents featuring 4 circles and people doing everyday things. The way to adapt this for Christmas was obvious. Festive things, lights, firework Christmas, snow, the whole 5 yards. In fact, Channel 4 believed this ident set was so flexible they reused it the following year, in 1997, as well as 1998, I think. There were some additions in 1997 though, such as this blue winter-inspired ident. Not sure if it's a Christmas ident, but all sources claim it aired on Christmas Day 1997, so I'll take their word for it. Plus, when Channel 4 turned 15 years old, there was a festive sting where a group of teenagers, as carol singers, get intercepted by a large 4 logo. Honestly, that's so relatable. Oh, and seductive lingering too. Into 1999, and Channel 4 introduced another new look, featuring the 4 now in a square and positioned onto a series of constantly moving lines. The way to adapt this for Christmas was obvious. Add some snow in the background and turn the 4 into a 2D Christmas tree. Okay, I'll admit, the Christmas tree fits nice when positioned near the 4 logo, but it becomes less nice when you realise this concept played out during every single Christmas this look was under, right up until 2004. Okay, fine, this era was probably best known mostly for Big Brother, 4 Later, and perhaps The Simpsons if we're being generous. I don't hate the look, and the idents that came later are more creative, and I do f*** with them. It's just the concept is a bit meh, I guess. By the end of the Square era, Channel 4 introduced a new set of idents on the last day of 2004, featuring the logo in natural environments forming for just a second before pissing off. The way to adapt this for Christmas was obvious. Do nothing. Yup, they really went the extra mile and did nothing. 7 whole years of a set, and it took something much bigger than them to wake up and take notice of Christmas. So let's skip forward to 2012, the end of the world, or so they said. 2012 marked the sequel to The Snowman in the form of The Snowman and the Snow Dog, and thus marked a new ident to accompany it. Same concept, animated like Raymond Briggs, and just the right amount of sugar to build up to the amazing plot lines and originality that we would not be receiving. Oh well, at least there's something to talk about. The aforementioned ident was reused in 2013 off the beaten track, but once again, we got nothing in 2014. Not even a repeat of the Snowman ident. So sad. But, thankfully, we're going into 2015, where a surreal and unnerving new look arrived on Channel 4. Completely incomprehensible and directed by Jonathan Glazer, these aren't just idents, they're literally art in themselves. Well, it would be if it wasn't introducing Come Dine With Me in grand designs. Still, the way to adapt this for Christmas was obvious. Use the blocks in the brake bumpers to make Christmassy things. Whoa! I'm bluffing, obviously, but I won't say revariance is a miss. Far from it. The Christmas lights one is my favourite, mostly because of the insanity-inducing music, but also because of imagery too. The logo is nowhere to be seen, a bit like my dad, but in its defence, there's not really anywhere to put it, is there? 2016 was the same, surprisingly. But there's an additional variant in the form of the one-off animated short We're Going on a Bear Hunt, featuring the family encountering various coloured Channel 4 blocks while simultaneously being stalked by a bear. Only slightly creepy when mixed with the music at the end. Again, it isn't festive, but neither is the book and nor is the film, so voila! Once we go into 2017, there's a refresh of the Idents to feature the Channel 4 logo. Yeah, crazy, right? Sadly, they lose points for featuring flatulence references in the Sprout Ident. I didn't want to do it, but they forced my hand. That's basically how it remained until it was last used in 2022, but there are special items for more animated shorts. For 2019, it was the Tiger Who Came to Tea, featuring the titular tiger manhandling the blocks, only mildly weirder than the stalking bear. Then for 2020, you had Quentin Blake's Clown, featuring the titular clown decorating the logo, perfect for anyone who isn't scared shitless by the very sight of clowns. On to 2021, and you had Terry Pratchett's Abominable Snow Baby, featuring the titular Snow Baby destroying the logo, which is based, I'll give him that. Finally, for 2022, you had another island in the vein of The Snowman, but with the extra context of it celebrating 40 years of Channel 4, and the fact that it pays tribute to Raymond Briggs, who passed away that same year. I will admit, it's great, nicely animated, and almost shockingly timed too, which I suppose makes it all the sweeter. Into 2023, and Channel 4 gets a new green logo, and a new set of idents representing modern Britain, as we know it. Makes it all the sweeter when introducing A Place in the Sun, but the way to adapt this for Christmas was obvious. Mog! Of course, Mog! Mog the cat, the one from that Sainsbury's advert in 2015 we were forced to watch in primary school. Oh yeah, there's other sequences too, I guess. The Mog ident is good, nicely animated with the current theme of Channel 4, although only 2 scenes is a bit tiresome, I suppose. Still, there's other, more generic variants, like one with the logo on top of a box of baubles and another where the logo literally puts out some street decorations. I probably prefer that one to the baubles one, probably because the Illuminated 4 logo looks cool. These idents are still used for Christmas in 2025, and I still don't know how long they'll last before they make a new one, but I'll discuss that in due course. Anyway, we're not done yet, because there's still another channel left, S4C, the kind of Welsh version of Channel 4, except not really, since they're funded partially by the BBC. Oh well, let's take a look at their Christmas island history. Now you must excuse the fact that because S4C have a viewership of around 12 people, it's going to be pretty hard to find footage of their earliest Christmas efforts. The earliest and one of the only ones from the 80s I can source is a special VT sequence that aired in 1982 at Close Down, reminiscent of the BBC Micro, this turns out to be. Perhaps it was made on the BBC Micro. Who knows? Anyway, skip forward to 1987 and we have a computer-generated nightmare. Of course, it's meant to be reminiscent of the new S4C sequence at the time, but it just reeks of the earliest of early Pixar. Literally, this was during Pixar's actual infancy. The following year we had the S4C logo crudely stitched on some bells ringing. Well, I say ringing, more like silent ringing, but it's the same thing. I blame the continuity announcers. Now, there's no documented footage of 1989 or 1990's idents, but there is of 1991's. It's the bells again, except there's no green leaves and it's on a different background. Thankfully, S4C had the excuse of having a budget low enough to justify it. 1992, and they pulled out the curtains. Literally, that's the sequence. Just the gold S4C logo on a curtain background. I assume this is because Panto, I guess? Anyway, still, low budget. keep that in mind. 1993 saw a new set of idents featuring inanimate objects depicted as dragons. Get it? Because Wales? Yeah, you get it. The way to adapt this for Christmas was obvious. Put an actual CGI dragon in a snow globe and make them mildly confused about the situation at hand. Oh yeah, and helpless. By the way, I hope you enjoyed that because we're not seeing a lick of additional footage until the year 2000. S4C are not to blame, the Welsh language is. Still, by 1995 there's a new logo too, decked in red and featuring a modern sans serif font and the sea spitting flames. Because Wales. Anyway, for 2000 we have something, but I can only assume to be children's drawings having been animated on a red background whilst it moves slightly. And the star breathes fire. Like a dragon! Oh my god! Genius! Again, it's not their fault there's so little context, it's the fact that no one has bothered to leak it to the public, so this is all you're gonna get. For 2001 we have S4C's interpretation of the Coca-Cola Christmas adverts, the main difference being it's in Wales, the music is slightly different, and it isn't AI generated. It seems to be set in a world where Welsh children worship the S4C truck like a god, and such trucks are so immortal it can't seem to collapse bridges. It's debatable whether this is actually an ident or if it's just part of a promo. In fact, most of these sequences probably do count that as two. Either way, it's the Welsh way of going about things, such as in 2002. We have holly and mistletoe, represented in terribly close-up shots to the point of unrecognisability. I kinda like idents like this because it's so abstract and weird, but it loses points for no massacre-inducing fire anywhere. 2003 went back to basics with white silhouettes on a red background doing stuff. Okay, fine. This kinda stinks and proves that 2003 was an awful year for Christmas idents in this country. I know S4C's pockets aren't that deep, but, like, we're talking that deep? Only 2 idents have resurfaced, with one person dancing and a star shooting by, found in, of all places, S4C's Facebook page. Kind of telling in a sweet sort of way. 2004 was white on white with blue tiles and a vaguely visible yellow star forming a Christmas tree. Reminds me of Liquid News. I don't know why, it just does. Even if this doesn't feel like much, it is an improvement from last year, I will say. 2005 brought in a much bigger budget, with S4C cracking out a bloody power crystal as their Christmas symbol. Reminds me of BBC Two's Christmas ident for 1977. It wasn't just this CGI-looking star thing. There was the whole theme of Welsh people recreating scenes from a nativity in the modern day, which you may only understand if you're religious. No dragon in sight unless you count the S4C logo, but that's being generous. Perhaps they wanted to rebrand. 2006 saw a stack of television sets making up a Christmas tree, which is smooth, if a little calculated. The reason for this rather low-brow affair probably had to do with the fact that S4C was preparing a new look for the start of 2007. But before we get into that, I just thought I'd mention something. It turns out that S4C's Christmas idents from the past are actually available, thanks to the trusty S4C Facebook page, so ignore everything that I said earlier. 1989 was CGI again, but of a spinning wooden carousel instead of bells. 1990 was one of those things you hang over a child's bed and expect them not to get scared by. Skipping to 1994, we have Father Christmas, but with a dragon tail. Kind of stupid, but I like stupid. 1995 was a kaleidoscope of festive imagery set to soothing music. Cool. 1996 was the same thing. Yeah, I know. 1997 was a strange family doing stuff. It's kind of inexpressible, so I'll let the actual sequences explain themselves.
Mountain Dew!
1998 was a spinning plum, ironically using new music which would be reused in 2002. Wow! $1999 was some angels, I think. Fairly sure it links to 2000's idents as well, but I can't confirm this. Right, back to 2007. New logo, new idents, and new colours. Not just red, but there's greens, blues, and greys now too. Plus, there's a magnet drawing objects into something, apparently meant to represent Welshness. The way to adapt this for Christmas was obvious. black background and multicoloured dots forming Christmassy things, just the way your mother intended it, and don't let her say otherwise. 2008 saw a completely white room getting whacked in the face with a spot of coloured presents, further proving that whitewashing is a terrible idea. The music makes it sound like the presents are guilty of something. Of what, you may ask? We'll never know. 2009 introduced the golden magic sparkles flying across Wales into your hearts and mind and soul. Forgive me, but this feels like it's introducing the National Lottery as opposed to documentaries about Welsh farmers or whatever it is S4C show. Into 2010 and the gimmick is Christmas tree in a strange Welsh courtyard. I assume Welsh because S4C is Welsh. Duh. Including some children running around, none the wiser, and a deer who is none the wiser because it's a f***ing deer.
It's basically images from the Nativity, but in Wales. But I like the way it is shot, so I won't get made at it. Something, skibbity toilet.
In 2012, we see light fixtures by a photographer called Michael Bazanko, who has created dancing lights which feel like stop motion and represent, you guessed it, Christmas iconography. But listen, I like neon lights forming abstract Christmas stuff. It's my knack. 2013 sees an animated sequence of a robin flying across landscapes which seem to be inspired by Wales, but don't seem to form anything close to a Welsh landscape. Listen, I'm a sucker for Christmas landscapes. I'm talking white and grey sky, snow, trees, forests, the whole 9 yards. I love that stuff, and I love this and the animation. It's much better than BBC One's Christmas efforts that year, so I'll give them that. 2014 saw a new S4C logo and idents which are meant to represent Welshness. Again, I know, third time going. I mean, they're not good. They're certainly not as good as the 1993 idents, but they're not, like, suicide-inducing. But the way to adapt this for Christmas was obvious. Repeat last year's idents, of course. Actually, I'd argue this works better, since the logo is positioned less awkwardly, but still, it's a reuse of last year's, not much to add. 2015 and it's back to the traditional Welsh Christmas, or whatever it's called. There's a fireplace, Christmas lights, a house, a tree, and that's about it. Granted, I like the Christmas lights one because unfocused footage of colourful things is another knack of mine that will never be swayed. 2016 reintroduces Father Christmas, or Father Christmases, into the ring, as well as a single Welsh girl buying a plush gnome. No, I won't respond to questions that I don't have the answers for. The Santa one ident is mildly nauseating, but it's just on the fence, so I won't complain. 2017 welcomes back animation with some elves wrapping presents, complete with a CGI wooden-looking S4C logo. Which, by the way, the logo on its own is just a bit crap, you know, just a bit. Still, post-Christmas Day it shows the elves partying because there's no more presents to wrap because Christmas is technically over. They were reused in 2018, but with an additional sequence showing the elves transporting the presents via a dodgy-looking slide thing. I trust it's as sturdy, because I kinda have to. I like these idents, mostly because it's kind of inspiring that a smaller channel like S4C actually still make Christmas idents of this quality, so I won't knock them. It would be unfestive of me to knock them. 2019 and it's back to live action with a motif of dancing for some reason. I would like to assume that S4C executives didn't see the critically acclaimed masterpiece, that is, Cats, in cinemas, but if they did, I think they got some ideas, except there's no anthropomorphic cats and no James Corden. I assume this is what happens when you're that close to your local community. Stuff like this just naturally comes out. 2020 was the year of the plague, but this didn't stop S4C from creating another batch of idents featuring residents of a single neighbourhood getting ready for Christmas. It's hard to say that this is lacklustre, mostly because it is, but S4C's contemporary programming doesn't exactly strike the national consciousness like it did in the 80s, since they make Welsh language shows rather than English language ones, and rightfully so, I must say. 2021 saw another return to animation, with a 2D animated sequence featuring Welsh animals doing Christmassy things, like carrying presents, goats, eating chips, seagulls, eating more food, puffins, being lazy, walruses. Okay, fine, forgive me for not being in tune with the Welsh wildlife, but it is a genuinely lovely piece of animation, and anyone who says otherwise is either lying or is an angering, shuddering failure. 2022 went back to good old live action, but this is different. Whilst yes, this does focus on the traditional Welsh Christmas, it uses camera angles to focus on a single object through the sequence. Even the tossing remote. That's kind of swaggish. You may call it shit, but I call it style. There's even New Year's ones too, just to add sprinkles onto the existing sprinkles. I've said badly about the set in the past, but I rescind all that criticism going forth. I love it. 2023 welcomes back the 2013 and 2014 Idents, but with a colour palette change to make it more blue and moody. I talked about this in my first Christmas selection box 2 years ago, and I don't mind it. As I've said before, S4C have a budget low enough to justify reusing sequences from previous years, a bit like BBC Alba, but unlike BBC One. So yeah, I actually kinda dig both the colour change and the animation because it's that delicious, I guess. Not a good descriptor. Finally, 2024 sees a new animation featuring a little Welsh girl meeting a dragon in her own living room. Yes, I contend that last year I said this looked like Cocomelon, and yeah, okay, fine, I stand by that. It's too cheapish for my liking. But anyway, they're nice callbacks to the 1993 Idents, whether intended or not. I don't know what the outline is, but it's a decent effort, all things considered. And that's pretty much it. I'll save my thoughts on this year's S4C Idents for the Christmas selection box coming out in a few days from this video. All in all, it's kind of strange how Channel 4 gave up on Christmas Idents just as S4C were getting into the groove of picking up where Channel 4 left off with their own flow of things, additionally. Whether it's strange or just goes to show how the little guy tends to care more than a big guy, I really can't tell. But that's about it for this video. I have no clue what I'm going to be covering next year, probably ITV if I can figure out how the hell that's going to work thanks to their regions. Anyway, have a good Christmas, Hanukkah, New Year, anything else event-wise in the UK. Nostar.